Good day, students. In this clip, we're going to be going over how to factor some more challenging problems using difference of squares in perfect square trinomial formulas, okay? Before we go ahead and take a look at the problem, let's review the formulas real quick. Let's take a look at difference of squares first. Difference of squares formula basically tells you that if you have a squared minus b squared, the difference of two squares, the factored form is the sum and difference of the square root of the two terms, okay? So it's going to be a plus b times a minus b, okay? So basically, if you have a square, you take the square root, okay? When you're taking the square root of this term and that term, what you're doing is, in essence, is you're dividing the exponent by 2, right? You notice this could be written as a to the 1, b to the 1, and then a to the 1, b to the 1, okay? So it's as though you're dividing the powers by 2, so you have a plus b, a minus b, okay? So keep that in mind. And then for perfect square trinomials, perfect square trinomials, if you have something of the form a squared minus 2ab plus b squared, the factored form actually is plus or minus. So the factored form is going to be a plus or minus b squared. Okay? So if you have a trinomial of this nature, you just root the first and the last term. Bring down the middle sign. If it's a plus, it's a plus. If it's a minus, it's a minus. Okay? So these are the formulas I'm going to be using to factor the problems in today's example. Okay, so number one, factor. The task is to factor, okay? So the first one we have is 256x raised to the 8 z minus y to the 8t. Okay? All right, so let's take a look at this. Um, you notice that this is a square and this y doesn't have a coefficient, so the default coefficient is 1. And we know that 1 is a square also. Okay? And we know that every even exponent is a square, so we can apply the difference of squares formula here. So what we'll do is we're going to take the square root of the coefficients since they're perfect squares. We're going to root the 256 and root the 1. And then we're going to write the sum and the difference of those, okay? So um, also, okay, so what's the square root of 256 is 16. So we have 16x. Now the power, since it's a square, we just take the square root of this, or we just divide that by 2, okay? So 8z divided by 2 is 4z. The first one is we're going to write the first one as a plus, and then the square root of 1 is just 1. Y, well, if it's a 1, we don't have to put anything. We just leave it at 1 as y. We know there's a 1 there. So y, if I divide 8t by 2, is going to be 4t. Remember, when you're taking the square root, it's the same thing as raising the power to the 1/2, okay? So that goes the sum, and then now we're going to have the difference. The difference will be exactly the same expression with the sign being the opposite of what you have here. So it's going to be times 16x to the 4z minus y to the 4t. Okay? All right. What do we have here? We have another difference of squares. Remember, there's a 1 here, which is a perfect square, and this is a perfect square. And the powers are even numbers, so they are squares also. All right, so we're going to apply the same procedure to this binomial here again. So we're going to root the coefficients and divide the powers by 2. So let's just bring this down. It becomes 16x to the 4z plus y to the 4t. And then on this one, this is going to be 4x to the divide that power by 2. You have 2z. Let's do the sum first, plus square root of 1. There's a 1 there. Okay, that's what I'm rooting. Let me make that clear. Okay, so taking the square root of 1. Square root of 1 is just 1. So y to the y is being raised to 4t. So if I take the square root, I divide the power by 2. So you have 2t. Okay, so this is the positive factor of the factored form of this difference of squares. So we're now just going to replicate this, inverting the middle sign. Okay, so times 4x to the 2z minus y to the 2z. Okay, wow, we have a difference of squares again, so we're going to apply the procedure to this term again. So just bring these down. We're going to have 16x to the 4z plus y to the 4t times 4x to the 2z plus y to the 2t. And then we're going to factor this. Remember, there's a 1 in front of here. This is a difference of squares because the coefficients of the variables are perfect squares and the powers are even, okay? So, or more, you can look at it also as multiples of 2. All right, so root this, root the 1, and then we're going to write down the sum and difference of the square root of these two, okay? So we're going to have square root of 4 is 2, x to the, you divide the power by 2, z, plus square root of 1 is 1, so just y to the divided power by 2, um, z. Okay, this is a positive component of the factored form of this difference of squares. Now what we simply need is the negative piece, which is the same thing, but instead of a plus, we'll have a minus. Okay, so we have 2x to the z minus y to the z. Guess what? This is a factored form of that expression up there. Okay, so basically apply the difference of squares formula once, twice, thrice, 3 times. Okay, so there goes the factored form. All right, now let's shift our attention to another problem. Question 2 is still factoring. What if we had the expression 4x squared minus 12xy plus 9y squared minus 49 z squared. Okay? Alright, so how can we factor this? This problem involves two. We're going to use both of the formulas I showed you. We're going to use the perfect square trinomial formula and also the difference of squares formula. So let's take a minute and examine this. Do you see a perfect square trinomial here? Let's inspect this piece right here. If I take the square root of the first and the last term and double it, do I get the middle term? Well, let's test. I'm just testing this piece right here to see if it's a perfect square trinomial. Okay? So the question is, if I double the square root of the first term, 4x squared, times the last term, do I get the middle term? So 2 times 2x times 3y. 2 times 2, 4 times 3 is 12, 12xy. Excellent, we got the middle term. Okay, so since this is a perfect square and this is a perfect square, and double the square root of the product of these two, though the product of the roots of these two, if you get we have the middle term, so this is a perfect square trinomial. It is of the form a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. So if it's of this form, the factored form is going to be what you get when you read the first and the last and bring down the middle sign, right? So you're going to have a minus b quantity squared. All right, so that's what we're going to do here. So we're going to read the first and the last and bring down the middle sign, okay? So that yields 2x minus 3y quantity squared, okay? All right, minus 49z squared. Okay, so let's take a look at this expression we have here. Are we done? Absolutely not. Notice we have a square and another square. Okay, this term is a quantity. So we have a square minus a square, so we can definitely use the difference of squares formula, right? So all we'll do is we'll take the square root of the first term and the last term, and then we're going to express it as a sum and a difference of the square roots of these two terms, okay? All right, let's go ahead and do that. So if I take the square root of this, it's going to be 2x minus 3y plus square root of 49 z squared is 7z. All right, and that's the sum. And then the difference, we just write 2x minus 3y. That's square root of the first term, like a squared, minus 7z. Okay, so guess what? This is a factored form of the expression above. So there goes your final answer. Okay? All right, so how well did you get these two examples I just did? Well, I want you to try the following problems. Try these. And then post your answer in the comment spot below this video. Let me see if you got it. Okay, if you have any difficulty, just you can comment as to what your difficulty is. Okay, so these are the examples I want you to try out. All right, so number one, so the task is to factor, just like we just did. Number one, factor x square minus 8xy plus 16y square minus 25. And then number two, I want you to try factoring 81 x to the 4b minus y to the 8b. Okay? All right, so try these two problems out. Post your answers in the comment section underneath this video, and let me see how well you understood this explanation. Okay? So that's that. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch this presentation. Feel free to subscribe to my channel by clicking up here and post a comment to let me know what your answers are or what you think about this presentation. More clips can be found on math.serve.com. Thanks again and have a wonderful day.